Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to have so much fun because we're going to be talking about how to get your message out there, how to make sure that the world knows that you exist because you are a fabulous entrepreneur, a fabulous business owner, fabulous employee. That's okay. All of these great things. And so please join me in welcoming Jabez LeBret to our program today. Welcome, Jabez. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Deb. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Well, let me tell people a little about you and then we will jump into this. So Jabez LeBret went from a homeless teen to a financial analyst managing a multi-million-dollar P&L at Nordstrom. And he's also an international public speaker who has delivered over 1,200 presentations. He's a best-selling author and a Forbes Contributor. He sold his award-winning marketing agency to pursue a passion for education as co-founder of Sisu Academy, a tuition-free boarding high school for underserved students. Now, Jabez is co-founder of Lotus Launch, helping female founders grow and scale their businesses. So again, Jabez, welcome.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Bios are always, they make me nervous. I don't know. I get self-aware.
We always sound so great, right?
Oh, man. Well, thank you for having me.
Cool. Well, I always love talking with my guests to know more about how they got to where they are today. So tell us a little bit how you got to where you are and how you discovered that this is your passion in life.
Yeah, well, I mean, I mentioned in the bio, I was homeless for about 2 years in high school and didn't graduate, went back on my GED, fought my way into college.
And it was the little place called Gonzaga.
A little place called, yep, if you watch basketball at all. I went to Gonzaga
we know
University.
the Zags, right?
Yeah, and I was fortunate enough that they took a chance on me and, let me into the university. And, it's interesting. The dean of admissions said, we'll let you in, but on one condition, that you make sure that you give back and take this seriously. And that was really an interesting, I don't think he understood the charge that he gave me at that point when he said that, so from there, I really did work hard and got in the corporate world and then got the entrepreneurial bug in my mid-20s and haven't looked back.
I love it. I love it. We'll talk a little bit more about your academy just because that was so fascinating. But, you work with female entrepreneurs. And, I always put my marketing hat on and I tell people niche folks. And so, but tell me about why you work with female entrepreneurs.
Multiple reasons. I'm a business partner with my wife. She's amazing. And she definitely has a kind of a bend on wanting to make sure that she's supporting, the female entrepreneurial and the female community as a whole. We are tuition-free boarding school is an all-girls school with an entrepreneurial bend, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But it really, for us, it was an opportunity to, I think, help give something back and to give some support into a segment and a sector that is lacking. So when you look at the market, right, you look at the number of entrepreneurs who make it over $1 million, there really is predominantly male, and the number of founders is not predominantly male. So there's a disconnect there.
Right.
And anytime I see the disconnect, I feel like compelled to hey, let's see what's going on here and where can we support, help, and really make sure that they're thriving and able to get to those goals where they want to be.
I love it. And you're right. So many women start their own businesses. And now a lot of times it's been their hobby that they decide to really start making money on, things like that. Or they actually, come to the conclusion, I'm not going any higher in my company. Right. And as much as things have changed and they have changed, but there is still, a limitation in a lot of cases. that is changing. But I think more than anything, women are going, I want to do this on my own. I know I can do this. But they don't always have, as you were saying, those support systems and things like that.
Yeah, and we went a little different route. So we're not a coaching company. Like we're not consultants. We built an on-demand product where you can go learn the things you need to learn when you need to learn them.
Right.
You're going to fire somebody. We have a course on how to fire somebody. You got cash flow problems. We have a course on cash flow. And so it's all on-demand content, really help founders kind of grow through their business and with their business as it continues to grow up. And some of that includes female specific content. Like my wife has this wonderful segment she's about to release about networking and some of the nuances of networking. We're each doing two sides of it and giving perspectives from both sides. And so it's been a really fun project, and we feel really fortunate to get a chance to, help out our entrepreneurial community because that's who we are.
I love it. And it is something that, as you said, there are times where we can go years without an issue. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I do need to fire an employee. And it's not just how you do it. I mean, there are legal ramifications. There's all sorts of things that come into something like that. And it's not always that you can call a buddy and say, hey, how do you do this? And so it's great that you have those on-demand programs.
Your friend may never have been through that before. And it's hard to fire people, even people that deserve to get fired. It's still hard to fire people. And so, you want the legal side and the emotional side. Like it is an emotional experience to let somebody go. I remember, my very, very first time doing it in my 20s, I had to fire somebody. And I mean, it wrecked me for like a week. I
it probably upset you more than them, right?
I'm sure it did. Oh, they were already off, got their other job already. But, I think it never gets easy. And, that's just one example of something where getting some guidance on steps to follow, processes to go through. That's what we're trying to build here in a community, of course, so that way we have a place where you can come and talk. And ask questions and say, hey, anybody else dealt with this before? Like, I've never had to do this before. What do you got? And that's always nice. And Facebook's great, but it's really public. I don't know about you, but I don't know. It's when all of my business stuff, like out in the public.
Yeah. Got to fire somebody today. What do y'all think?
It'd be really awkward if they saw it before they got fired.
Or the people are like, is it me? Is it me?
Oh my gosh. That'd be the worst. Yeah. The other staff was like, oh my gosh. Oh, what a nightmare that would be.
Right. Oh yeah. And it really is about building those communities. I love mastermind groups. I love mentors, all of those things, because, you don't get a lot of that in your educational programs.
Right.
As fabulous as Gonzaga is, as fabulous as, I went to the University of Colorado. All of those had great programs, but sometimes it's those nitty gritty little things that you just don't know how to do.
And you need a place and a space to be able to do that. It's interesting. You talk about community, and I think about one of the essential parts of community is building a community, and I was just kind of reflecting for a second there about, man, building community is interesting, and getting into communities is interesting. And, I've done a lot of speaking, I've done a lot of writing, I've done a lot of content, and all of them seem to tend to find me into new communities, which is always a pleasure to get an opportunity to become part of another community, to learn and grow and share. I think is just, it's worth it. It makes sense.
Right. And I also love that it's you and your wife who are in this business. Not that, it's because what I like is that, people are going to get the male and the female perspective. And I think that's very important because there are positives from both sides. And also, there are shortcomings. So to be able to have that, I think that's very important.
It's nice
and
that
so
it's
I love
baked in.
that.
And my wife, Becky, she's got multiple master's degrees. I mean, she's brilliant. She is the hardest worker I've ever known in my. We met in the business center in Las Vegas because we're both workaholics. So, we weren't out at the club. We were in the business center working. And I was like, hey, you're working. I'm working. We must kind of be like the same kind of person here. And, years later, kids and all that. But it's been an opportunity and a blessing to work together for sure.
I bet, because it is, it's so cool. But, I also have to ask, especially with COVID and all of these various things. So you guys are basically together 24/7, personal, business, everything. How is that?
Try opening a boarding school. Man, I mean, talk about 24/7.
Mhm. Oh yeah, that was 28,
yeah, that was,
right?
it was more hours, than I knew even existed in a
Mhm.
day. For us, we've been able to find really good balance,
Okay.
and it works for us. It doesn't work for every couple, and that's okay, and that's absolutely fine. I am the kind of person who needs people around all the time. Like I'm very extroverted. I want, and I get energy from being around people. My wife is introverted, and it kind of drains her sometimes to be around people. And so I think we've learned that one of the ways we get space is she'll stay back and love it. And I'm like, conference, I got to go out to this networking meeting, or I'm going to go fly and speak here. And she's like, awesome. Like, you go.
Yeah, she's shoving you out the door, right?
Everybody wins.
Well, and that's a testimony to knowing your strengths. And I think it's interesting because I'm just, clearly I'm social, and I miss networking and things like that, and going to conferences, and I have health issues. And so I still don't, but I mean, the nice thing is I can meet all of those pretty much online anymore, but I do miss the people.
Yeah, it is. There is a difference. I do love the online side for sure. And it was a nice thing that this whole incident, this whole moment in time did for us, was get everybody used to being online.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right.
I have really enjoyed the fact that things are opening up a lot more, and we're starting to see more conferences. We're starting to see more meetings. We're starting to see more opportunity to get out there and mingle. That one of my strengths is speaking.
Right.
And similar to you, where you're like, you love to get out to the conferences. When the pandemic hit, it was really hard for me. I felt like
I'm like,
my wings had been clipped, like that's something I do. It's a part of who I am. And so that was a challenge, but thankfully now we're starting to see a swing back, I think, in the other direction.
Well, and we're going to continue to see a combination, I think, and so that's going to be fun. But, as you mentioned, speaking is one of your passions. And so you really like to work with people to show them how speaking is such a great way to get your message out there, all of those various things. So, for the people who are like, oh God, I mean,
totally. Nope, no thanks. The people who just about turned off the podcast.
Wait, I mean, I know people who can't even do Zoom still, right? They turn their cameras off, or they don't have a camera.
Yep, I'm not saying Tony Robbins here. We got you covered. Don't worry.
Yeah, and so talk to us though about why speaking is such a great thing that most, not everybody, but that most people should really consider as part of their marketing toolbox.
Yeah, and particularly if you're a business owner. So speaking is one of the easiest, fastest, best ways to get in front of either customers or vendors or partners. It's not always just about getting in front of the customer. That I think that people just misunderstand what speaking's about. They're scared about how to book a presentation. Like, where would I even start? They're scared about their content. A lot of times we have situations where people feel like, I don't think I have enough. Like, who am I to go talk to this?
Right. Why would anybody want to listen to me?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I get it. 100%. That imposter syndrome, which almost all of us feel. Truth is, what's common to you isn't common to everybody else. And so remember, you have learned things, and your job is not to convince people of stuff. Your job is not to try to be the PhD on the topic. Your job is simply to share some of your experience. And in sharing your experience, you're going to give people some different perspective.
Right.
And whether they already know it or not doesn't matter. That's the important part. So that frees you up. You should just be able to feel free. You can do this. And I just really think that it's once you get the steps down, the practical steps, that becomes a lot less intimidating.
Right. And I think one of the things too, people always think, public speaking, and we've all heard the thing about that's the greatest thing that people fear, but it can be to a group of 10 or 10,000. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's not, it's as you said, it's who you need to talk to is what's important. And then you kind of go from there.
I had a whole series that was an audience of one. And I booked meetings to give a presentation to a single and they weren't sales presentations either. And so it really doesn't have to be the massive audience to what you're saying. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And generally you work your way up that way. Like you don't usually start off with 1,000 people in the room. Like that would be petrifying. Like
right. Oh, can you imagine? I mean, yeah.
And that's not how you start. You start a lot smaller, and there are places to go start. There's a few things you have to get in line before you do start, but there are plenty of places nearby. You don't have to hop on a plane that are right down the street from where you live. Where you can start to kind of hone this in, add this to your repertoire.
Right. And there are also things that you can do to make sure that you're ready to do this. Toastmasters comes to mind as one of the greatest organizations to be able to help somebody. And it is one of those things where you don't want to just jump up and do this, because it does take preparation on stage presence, on projecting, using microphones. I mean, all sorts of things like that. But those are definitely things that you can learn to do.
And I'm a huge Toastmasters fan. So I think it's important to get off, like, open the air right now that I'm not a speaking consultant coach. I'm not selling you a
You're not giving us a training on it.
I literally just do this so much that I'm like, I love sharing it with other people because it's so powerful. And this is not my business. My business isn't to teach people to speak, but I feel that so many people need to understand how this can transform their bottom line faster than anything else that they're probably doing right now as far as activity. And so that's why I'm passionate about it, because I like to help entrepreneurs. And so to what you're talking about with Toastmasters, the reason why I think it's so important, and I don't work at Toastmasters, is that Toastmasters gives you a safe and brave place to go practice. And they help you hone in. You're talking about what I call like your speaker's tool belt. Like I need certain tools to do the job, and Toastmasters teaches you the separate tools that you want to have in place in order to go do the job. And so, yeah, huge fan. I'm glad that you brought them up, because they are a great organization.
Right. And as we were talking, I was thinking, people who are like, I don't want to do that. The first place where probably many people are going to have to be a public speaker is a networking event, right? Where they're to stand and give their 30-second spiel, their elevator pitch. And I have seen people, bless their hearts. I live in the South, I can say that. But I mean it in a good way. There's a bad way to say bless your heart too. But, these people are absolutely terrified. And they read it. But that's because they want to make sure they say everything. But let's kind of start with some of the basic, how do we get over some of that, that fear, all of those various things?
So it is scary at the beginning. Let's just acknowledge that. That's okay. We're going to embrace that it's scary. Number two, most important thing that I think of when I think about people very first time and they're a little scared, the audience does not know what you didn't tell them. So get over it. It's okay. Let it go. They don't know what you didn't tell them. And you know how many times I've given so many presentations and I still get off stage and go, why didn't I say this thing? I was totally thinking of saying it was really awesome. Probably wasn't as awesome as I thought it was in my head, but I didn't say it. And so that's okay. You can let that go and be free of that. It is okay. They don't understand. The next thing is to really practice a lot and often. And the more that you practice in environments, if it's just to 10 people, great. Then go practice to 10 people. If it's for 2 minutes, great. 2-minute presentation to 10 people, fantastic. When you are getting ready, remember, you know this. You already know what you're going to say. The knowledge is all there. So don't write it all down. Don't memorize a script. That's a recipe for disaster. Just write some notes, just a couple of bullet points. That's it. That's all that you need. And then just a couple words, not a paragraph, a bullet point, couple words. You know this stuff. You breathe it in and out every single day. Share from the heart and share experiences. And then you don't have to worry about whether you forgot something or didn't forget something. You can always talk to them about it after.
Yeah, and the stupid things of imagine them in their underwear. I never, who the heck
Sounds
came up with
scarier
that
to
one?
me. That sounds
I
scarier.
know that's like ew,
Oh man.
either that
Why
or
are
I
they
get
all
up
in their underwear? Am I supposed to be in my
the,
underwear? What are we doing?
or I'd get the giggles. I mean, yeah, I mean that's just not.
Oh.
And now there are times where I find a person I know or someone who is at least smiling, some things like that. But I also don't want to just stare at them. I'm going to give my entire presentation to you. But it is okay to
Yeah.
look around and find those friendly people. It is a little unnerving when you see the person that's got their arms crossed and they're like, I don't want to hear this.
Sure.
Okay, then skip them.
Just keep going,
Mhm.
going. We have at Lotus Launch, we do have a speaking course that
Mhm.
does kind of teach some of the basics.
Mhm.
It's not a replacement for Toastmasters because
Mhm.
there is no replacement for
Right.
doing it. In our speaking course, we talk about eye contact and
Mhm.
how to do eye contact. So remember, with speaking, there's a huge spectrum
Mhm.
in speaking, from professional
Mhm.
to I'm just going to give some content.
Right. Mhm.
And you don't need to be anywhere on that spectrum. Wherever you are is fine. It can be okay to just share some content and not have all the professional
Mhm.
things down. It had gotten so bad. I'd become so polished that I had completely eradicated all ums, ahs, ands, ohs, says, no filler at all.
Mhm.
And I sounded like a robot. And I watched a
Right.
video
It
of
was
myself and I was like,
scripted. Mhm.
oh, that sounds terrible. Like I need to be a little more, human. And
Right.
so don't worry about that. It's okay. Those are good things. Be yourself, be personable. If you're on the learning starting outside of the fence and you're worried about eye contact, you're in a room with more than 10 or 15 people, just look over the heads of the people in the back.
Mhm.
No one will know.
Right.
Promise.
Mhm.
No one will know. Just
Mhm.
right over the heads of the
Mhm.
people right in the back of the
Mhm.
room. And it'll just look like you're just making eye contact with all
Mhm.
sorts of people.
Right. And we're not going to be Tony Robbins or somebody like that. I mean,
Oh.
even if we've been doing it for years, that's just the thing to remember.
And you don't need to. That is not really, I think, where the power of speaking actually lies. Is Tony Robbins a powerful speaker? Sure.
Mhm.
Do you have an opinion on him? That's not, okay, fine,
Yeah.
whatever. That
Mhm.
doesn't matter. Where the opportunity for speaking lies is in the ability to separate yourself from the pack.
Mhm.
So that's something that speaking does. It's one of the reasons why speaking is so intimidating psychologically, is you're literally separating yourself from the
Right.
pack.
You're up
All
there.
eyes are
They're
on
down
you.
there.
Yes.
Mhm.
And that's what
Mhm.
kicks your brain into a little bit of a
Mhm.
fight or flight. And so once you begin to practice, you realize I'm not in danger.
Mhm.
I'm okay. And literally, I'm okay.
Right.
Then you start to say, okay, how can I give some information? Because there's a big difference between I've presented at networking events where I was the speaker at the networking event.
Mhm.
And so let's talk about why this is so important.
Okay.
It's one thing to get up and share your 90-second elevator pitch.
Mhm.
Great. Awesome. Important. Now people know who you are, what you do, hopefully. They have an understanding of the benefits that you give.
Mhm.
It's a whole nother thing to be even the 25-minute speaker
Right.
on said topic,
Mhm.
because suddenly you are now considered someone who knows something.
Right. The expert.
I know, which I kind of hate the word, but yes, they do look at you a little bit like
Mhm.
that. And that takes and changes the dynamic
Mhm.
of the relationship between you and everybody in the room after you're done talking.
Mhm.
Like you'll get more business cards, you'll get more people who want to follow
Right.
up with you, you'll get more introductions to more partners, more
Mhm.
opportunities to speak on podcasts like this, more chances to really get your voice out there,
Mhm.
just by taking the risk and the challenge
Mhm.
on to give a small talk.
Right. And everybody started out at some point. I mean, Tony
Absolutely.
Robbins, I don't know where he started out, but he didn't start out on the stage in front of 10,000 people. And he practices. I mean, it's, as you said, he practices, and everybody needs to practice. Now, I'm with you. When it gets to be scripted, then I don't like it. Now there are times where things are scripted. I remember years ago I worked for a big financial services company, and it also sold insurance. And there is an organization that is called the $1 million something or other. But what it means is somebody has sold $1 million worth of
Oh, no.
policies, and so it's a really big deal. And so my CEO was to speak to all of them. Now this was long ago, so in-person things. The issue was, he was not he was not comfortable speaking. I mean, and he knew that. So we worked on this. But it also was something where it was being simultaneously translated, because this is a worldwide organization.
That's a whole nother ball.
Oh, yeah. And so it truly was scripted.
Yes.
And he had a teleprompter. So we trot down to the local TV station, because this was long enough ago. You couldn't just put him up on a computer. And we borrowed a teleprompter. And because that was, he really needed to practice with that. He could not deviate by one word. Because then it wouldn't match, and everything. It's
giving me heart palpitations.
I know. I hated teaching him to do it. I mean, it was, but we told him, think of it as you're not speaking, you're giving a performance, because that was what it was. I mean, it was much more like you would see a TV program, a theater performance, things like that. You were reading the script, but most of the time, 99.99999% of the time, it's not like that. Now, you might have a teleprompter, you might have your notes, but it's okay to kind of deviate a little bit.
Yeah. And so there is an opportunity in particularly with this audience, for the entrepreneurs out there listening to this. My last agency, one of the things that we did is we worked with a lot of law firms, and we created a continuing legal education course. Several of them. They're called CLEs in the legal space. And they're an opportunity for us to give lawyers credit, like certified credit, to maintain their license. And in those instances, the presentations were a lot less off the script and a lot more organized as a course, right? They were an hour long. I had X things I had to cover. We had submitted to the state the list of items that were going to be covered at the Bar Association event. You show up to the Bar Association and you give the presentation. With that said, I didn't have to read through a script, right? So I didn't have to go that far. But I did have like a slide deck behind me that I used as my own prompt to say, okay,
you didn't read from it though.
Oh, never. But it helped me stay in line with the topics that I was talking about. And I prepared for it like I would if I was giving a lecture.
Right.
Which did allow me to go section by section by section and really know deeply into the content. I'm going to share this about this at this point, this about this at this time, this about this then. And at the end of it, we've wrapped up into an entire course. That and we actually were able, you're not allowed to sell in CE courses, because obviously it's a CE course. It has to be training. We were still capturing 95% of a room's contact information.
Wow.
At the end of it, and meeting planners loved us. So we had found like a little recipe, and it's kind of one of the things that I generally tend to like to talk to entrepreneurs about, because I see that's where most of us head is, how do I get in front of my customers? And how do I deliver valuable content? I don't want to pitch them. I'm not trying to sell. You don't need to do that to sell. Like, you can sell by just being smart. And then, how do I follow up after it's over?
Right. So, okay, so we've convinced people, I can do this. Then the next thing is, how do they even find where to speak?
Depends on what kind of speaking you want to do. If you're looking to become just a keynote speaker, like I've got a story, I want to share this story, that's a whole different arena where you're going after associations and companies. And that's why people like me write books. And, we try to like put ourselves in the position that we get hired to go to the big event. And that's great. If you want to do that, I'd be happy to connect you with resources for how to do that and share my experience. I think for entrepreneurs, really where the bread and butter is in exposure to your market.
Right.
Now that, as we mentioned earlier, that could be partners, it could be vendors, it could be customers. We, at my last agency, I'm a big fan of sharing experiences. We found it on accident. And then we reverse engineered it into like, oh my gosh, like there is a way to do this.
Wow. Hey, this worked.
Yeah. We were struggling to get clients and we're a brand new agency. And I saw this event. I lived in San Francisco. I saw this event at the San Francisco Bar Association on the very topic of what our agency did. And I was like, oh, interesting.
Hey, I can talk about that.
Yeah. And they were like, for $25, you can be a non-bar member associate and come. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to go. Like, I'm going to check this out. I sat in the back and I was like, I am better than this. Like, I know my stuff better than this guy knows his stuff. And I was like, wait a minute, looking around the room. And I just asked the person afterwards, what is this that I'm sitting at? And they're like, oh, well, this was a CLE. You're obviously not an attorney. And I was like, no, I'm not. And, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express once.
I play a doctor on TV.
Who doesn't remember that commercial? And so then I started to realize, oh my gosh, why have we not just simply gone and found organizations and associations where our customers are already going, and then present a compelling reason that the meeting planner would have us come speak. And there's a massive objection you have to overcome with meeting planners. And so you just kind of have to like be mindful that you don't just show up, but if you do present yourself well, I think you'll be in a good position.
Right. And for people just starting out, it really is okay to go to Rotary clubs, to, know, all of those various things, because those are business people also, and so it's okay to go to those, especially when you're just starting out.
And you talk about niching. So like if you have a niche, it's a lot easier to find where to go talk. Right. If we're only talking to attorneys, well, I can go to Google and I can start looking up, well, where are attorneys going to hang out? And what kind of presentations are they listening to? Is it orthodontists? Is it plumbers? Is it, a dance studio? Like whatever that, which would be parents. Like, where do the parents go? Well, they go to the PTAs. They go to the, they might go to the Rotary. They might go to the Chamber of Commerce. Like those could be. So thinking about your little persona of who's my target, and then start to just do some research on Google. Like, Google's an amazing tool. And then don't forget that, and the number one fear of the meeting planner, this is you need to make sure you understand this. The number one fear of the meeting planner is that you're going to get up on stage and sell your stuff. That is, they are petrified that you're not there to teach. You're there to sell. And that's why I say that, to me, that's great, because I don't want to go sell. I want to teach, and you want to teach. You wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you weren't someone who appreciated education, which means you're someone who also appreciates to educate. So then go teach. And if you go teach, meeting planners will love you, and they'll give you referrals and get you booked elsewhere and send you testimonials and all.
Because they all talk to each other.
Oh, they all talk. Oh yeah. No, I've seen people get blacklisted, and it's not a pretty sight, but they deserved it, because they came in sheep with wolves clothing. They said they were going to do one thing. They got on stage, they had the microphone, and they went the whole other direction. And that makes the meeting planner look bad. And that's, they're your audience too.
And as you said, you can still sell. There's just a different way to do it. So maybe you are an author. Okay. You're not going to be up there, this is my book, buy my book, this is my book, hello, buy my book. But you might have a table in the back where afterwards people can buy books, and so, and probably in your introduction, like, I said, you are an author, and so things like that creep in. But yeah, when when it starts to look like there's the red sign above you saying buy, that's when the meeting planner or the volunteer coordinator, whoever it is that got you there to speak, is thinking, this is not what I want.
Right. And let's pull the curtain back here. So let's talk fundamentally about how this stuff works for selling from stage, because it happens a lot and people don't always understand how it happens, but they're like, oh my gosh, I just bought this thing. In presentations of any kind, even here on a podcast, there's a very important thing that you need to do, which is called seating. Seating can be done in a creepy, bad way, or it can be done in a polite, respectful way. My wife and I have a company. It's natural to talk about, like, what do you do? But it's another thing for me to share with the audience, hey, part of our product includes this solution, without me having to say, you should come buy my product if you want to go do X, Y, and Z. What you can do, if you have a book, if you have a service, so when we had our marketing agency, we sold marketing services to law firms. That included search engine optimization, website development, you list it, right? The whole gambit. When I was giving a presentation, I would say, well, one of our really successful clients did this. And
that's a very gentle way to be talking about it.
And I even sometimes ask for permission. Is it okay if I share with you examples from our clients, because I understand their stuff and they've given me permission, and everybody's like, yeah, that sounds great. And I'm like, all right, let's look at the data. Here's the data from our client. And here's the mistake we made with this client and how we fixed it. So I'm still teaching you. Go fix this. Don't do this. Don't make my mistakes. And I'm not being aggressive about saying, come buy my stuff. I'm not saying come sign up for Lotus Launch. I'm saying, hey, we have some cool courses. This is what we teach, and why we teach it is the same thing. And so for those that are listening, take a step back in your presentation and find opportunities where you can gently bring up the fruits of your labor by highlighting the people that you work with.
Right.
By highlighting,
and you're there because
content.
you are, the expert in whatever it is. And I'm, air quoting my expert. Yeah, because people know, okay, we hired Jabez to speak about entrepreneurship for women because he helps women entrepreneurs. So they already they know that. So you don't have to be saying, well, in class 1 we do this, and this we do this. And, it's already there.
We've all been to those presentations, right? We've all been in the room where somebody said, here's why we set up this class this way, so you should come check it out. Here's why we did this, you should come check it out. Here's why I did this, you should come check it out. And by the end of it, I'm like, well, you're going to give me any actual information, or you're just going to tell me why you set it all up that way? Like, I would like you to just teach me. And I get it that your stuff's inside your stuff. Like, so remember, this whole thing about being like uncertain about speaking, a lot of it revolves around, I don't want to come across as salesy. I don't know if I have a right amount of information. What if people don't like me? At the end of the day, everybody else is just as freaked out about it, and they're so appreciative that you'll do it. You do have a ton of knowledge to share, and then don't become salesy, and then you don't have to worry about that side of the fence. I think you get those things working for you, and it becomes a lot easier to start getting in a rhythm of doing.
It's not the ShamWow commercial.
No, God, no.
And you're right. We've all been to those presentations. It really annoys me when I've paid money to go, and usually that is a keynote speaker that is going to do that, because they're they are the author, they are the whatever, and they are getting up there and being more salesy than helpful, and educational, as you were saying. Yes,
and there's other ways to use content, like books, for example. So when we were building our marketing agency, we gave our book away for free. So we had a 240-page book that listed out. We shared everything that we would do for our clients. And people would be like, well, my gosh, aren't you worried that like somebody's going to take your book and then they're not going to hire you because you just gave them all the answers? And I said, that was awesome. Like, please, yes, go do, because they become your biggest advocate, because they go around telling everybody how awesome your stuff is. Just enough and go, oh, I don't quite know how to finish it. I need to hire Jabez. That's the key. Yep. They'll get most of them. That's what happens. So for the very few that do, if you give away all your information, for the very few that do take it and go do it, and then they say, oh my gosh, this actually worked. Awesome. I now go, hey, don't talk to me. Go talk to Tim. Go talk to Sarah to ask them how our stuff is. And they're not even customers. But it also gave me an opportunity to engage with my audience in a different way, because the way that we were able to capture so much of the room's contact information, at the beginning, I would carry around boxes of books. Like I would lug like 80 books to like a legal event, and they're heavy, and it was like, and then we'd hand them all out, and I'd get about 30% of a room, 35% of a room's contact information. That's pretty on target. Then one day the books didn't show up. I'm not going to say the airline, Delta, that
the books went to a different location. Have the books,
but I owe Delta a thank you card, because they fundamentally changed the way that we did this, and they didn't even mean to. Books got delayed, bags get delayed all the time, no big deal. But then I was like, call my business partner. I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do?
What do we do?
Holy moly! Like I've got 80 people come into a room, I have no books, and we on the spot, we're like, all right, we're going to print out a half sheet. And we're going to ask people if they want an ebook or a hardcover, because our book was hardcover at the time.
Must give us your contact information.
Bam. I didn't even have to like try. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, we've been doing this wrong the whole time. Like, and the lesson here learned is, don't just give away your content. Don't just put a QR code on the screen to have people sign up for your newsletter or to sign up for your thing. Brian Tracy, man, tell you what, still going back to the old Brian Tracy days, you got to give them an A/B option. And if you give them an A/B option, they'll give you their contact information in order to get the selection they want. And that's a subtle nuance, but an important step.
And how many times have we gone to whatever and gotten the book, and you're like, oh, cool, we got a book. And then it goes on your bookshelf. Because it was the free gift. That was great. But when I have to take the step to request it, I wanted it.
You're psychologically more bought in. Absolutely. It also means I get a chance to follow up with you on things other than just the book. And for our agency, what it was is that we would call you to verify that your address on the form was correct. That was another touch point. We would mail you the book with a newsletter. We would call to verify you received the book. So we built in a bunch of touch points that were non-salesy, non-aggressive. We weren't trying to get you in to anything. We were just saying, hey, we're connecting, staying connected, top of mind. And it went really well. Another good example, we're about to start doing a lot more speaking at women's events. We haven't done a ton of speaking at the women's entrepreneurs event. We're starting to move that direction, and we're evaluating what is our AB offer. And sometimes that's going to change over time. Our inclination is I'm going to offer two different things. Do you want to get this, or do you want to get this? Or if you want to get both, just check both boxes. But then I'm still going to get your information. So now I can start to cultivate a relationship. And to me, that is way more enjoyable as a person that's still building a business, to build a relationship at the same time. And if you buy, you buy. If you don't, you don't. But I get the smile in the morning.
It wasn't the right thing at the right time.
And I don't want you to buy if it isn't. And you shouldn't want your customer to buy if it isn't either. And I remember, we'd give these presentations. And so maybe let's take a step back. I don't want to dive too deep into my own thoughts on selling. But as far as where we would give the presentations, there are associations, there are going to be groups that are industry specific. There will also be other conferences that this person's likely to go to. And so, do be broadening your pitch to as many of these places as you possibly can. And, hopefully you can get the contact information, but whatever you do, make sure you get a testimonial or two from the meeting planner. And that's what you're going to use to help continuing to book.
So now that the big question is free or paid, and it's interesting. I met, when I lived in Denver, I was a speaker, and I still am here in Atlanta, but I spoke about social media. That was great, fabulous. And I met with the wonderful Laura Stack, who at that point was the national chair of the NSA, the National Speakers Association. She's an absolutely wonderful, delightful woman. And it was, it was so great to be able to spend some time with her. And, now I was being paid to speak. I mean, that was the thing. And we're going to talk a little bit more about all those nuances. But I remember one thing she told me that I immediately changed on everything I did. I had been saying I was a public speaker. And she said, you need to change that. You are a professional speaker. And that one word made people go, she's going to charge.
Public sounds free. No, that's just fantastic advice. So paid, it's important to get paid to speak. But how you get paid to speak is, I think, really the fundamental of the question. As far as free speaking, like no intent of any monetary.
So like say for the Rotary Club.
Correct. There are plenty of places where I am like, look, I want to go just teach. I have no skin in the game. That's fine. High schools, I'll speak to any school, junior high school, no charge, no questions asked, done. I'm there. Those are things that are passionate for me, right? It might be your church. It might be like whatever it is. Like you have your passion places, the food bank. So that's one side of the fence. When we're talking about it from a professional perspective, there's honorariums for speaking. So that's the paying directly. So you're going to give me $12,000 and I'm going to come talk to your audience. You're going to give me $500. I'm going to come talk to your audience. Doesn't matter what it is. That's your speaking honorarium. Then there's the presentations that you don't charge, but you don't charge because it is a highly targeted, highly specific audience.
You're going to hopefully get business from it.
Yes. If someone says to you, you should come speak for free, this is going to be great exposure, that is the moment that I'm like, I really appreciate your time. I have several speakers I can get you in touch with, but no, thank you. Because if somebody's pitching you on exposure, then I would guess more often than not, that event's not going to lead to a lot. If the event is a place where that meeting planner is more skeptical to have you present, you're on the right track. Because if the meeting planner is like, whoa, we don't take people, just anybody here, then that means that they have already taken the time to cultivate a real audience and they have real care about that person presenting well. that's where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you're trying to find if you're going to do the free speaking. And so when
Right.
we did our free talks on the legal side, we capture all the content information with all this whole follow-up sequences. And we sold millions of dollars of marketing services through speaking for free. We gave our book away. It cost us money to go speak, not just in travel, but in all the other stuff we'd send them. But that was part of our marketing. So we had a whole plan and a system around it.
Right.
If you're just starting out, do a couple of different versions. Yeah, maybe get $250 to go speak at one place, maybe go speak at one place for free. Maybe do this, like test them out, like see where you're comfortable. If you want to get paid to go speak, I'm happy to share my contract with anybody. Like I will send you my speaking agreement. If you've never done it before, connect with me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email or whatever. I'll just share it. You can use it. I'm not an attorney, but it works. And there's an agreement I have that I send out with meeting planners that says how much you're going to pay me, when are you going to pay me,
right.
when do
Expenses,
I have to be there,
all those various things.
and you need to do that. So don't handshake it on $500. It's not that they won't pay you, but it's if everybody's going to take each other seriously,
right? Yeah, because it is a service that you are providing.
Correct.
And I remember, years ago, I was contacted by a chamber, and this was when I was in Denver, and they said, "We'd like you to come speak," blah, 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 blah. And then, I said, "All right, this sounds great. My fee is," and I told them, and I got crickets. And I'm like, "Hello, anybody still there?" and they said, "Wow." It was the funniest conversation because she said, "Well, we assumed you didn't charge." And I said, "Oh." And she said, "Well, you love what you do." And I said, "Yeah, but that don't pay the bills."
Right. And if you're a website builder and the chamber needs a new website, they don't expect you to give it to them for free.
Right.
That's your business. That's what you do. It's part of who you are.
Well, and there's ways that organizations, you can give, say, a membership. I mean, there are all sorts of different ways that organizations who might not have a budget can do that. I mean, even if it's just, you're speaking to a church group, okay, well, do they have a bulletin that you can put an ad in? I mean, there's all sorts of things, but I love that, I shouldn't get paid because I love it. So I should only get paid if I hate it.
There is one instance I can think of outside of the charity speaking where I'm giving back.
Right.
The one instance I can, two where I speak for free. Number one, if I have a brand new topic. So
you're testing it.
I do. I have a new keynote that I'm doing, and I've been doing the same keynote for about 8 years. I have a brand new keynote, and I need practice. I need to get in front of a live audience, and I need to test out my material. Just like comics do. Comics do the same thing. They go to these small clubs to test out their material, right? You have to do the same thing. Go and test it out. That's one way. The other side is peer-to-peer groups where I am being brought in as an actual expert on a topic. I will sometimes come in and I again, don't love that word, but there are some things that I have learned well enough to come in and teach my peers something new.
Right.
And in those instances, I have found it to be very beneficial to go speak for free at industry conferences with peer-to-peer, because I meet new people doing things that I didn't know about. I learn new things from them, and I build relationships, because I would say the most powerful room to be in, there's this conference I love. It's called PubCon. It's for marketing folks. And the most powerful room was that speaker's room where only speakers were allowed to go.
Yeah, the little green room.
And it was like this guy owns an agency with 150 employees, and this person over here wrote this book, and this person over here just published in Fortune magazine, and this person, and it's all these this person runs Netflix online, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in the same room with so many smart people. I'm gonna sit here the whole conference and just learn from what's going on. That is the other time, and the few and far between times that I do say, yeah, I'll go for free.
Right. And I love that you say we need to give back. I'm the same way. If it's a college, high school, church group, even Rotary clubs, things like that.
Absolutely.
I am fine with doing that. And it actually says on my website that, there are a certain, I give back a certain number of pro bono presentations a year. Now, COVID, hello, haven't done anything, but, and to contact me, because I don't want, the local high school to think, hey, they can't contact me because I'm going to charge. No, if there's something in it like that, and I think that's very important, no matter what you do for business, to give back to your community.
And do you know how cool it is to be a business owner and go speak at a high school?
Mm-hmm.
Those high school students they'll ask you crazy
Oh,
questions.
they ask the best questions.
They have they are fascinated at the concept, and whether they choose to go on and start their own company, which most will not, and that's okay. The lessons learned from entrepreneurship are applicable to anything in life. So that resilience and the determination and the understanding risk and knowing how to like make a leap of faith, like those are powerful things that entrepreneurs do that are good if you're sitting at a desk and you're just starting out your career and you're trying to figure out how to grow in your company. All of those skills are applicable. So there are so many places that you can have an opportunity to go share even just the experience of being you. And that can have a pretty big impact. Right.
Oh, yeah. And I would imagine, especially, when you talk about going from being a homeless teen to what you are doing now, that really would have a huge impact on people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a unique story for sure. And I'm fortunate I had a lot of opportunities along the way, and it doesn't hurt to be a 6 foot tall white male, going through that. But, you don't have to have that story to still make a reasonable connection with your audience and to still have a massive impact. The one advice that I give people when it comes to, I have to say experience share, when it comes to connecting with an audience in a more powerful way, people won't trust you until they know you. So if you can't share a little bit about you, then they're not going to connect with you in the same way. So don't be afraid to be honest. Like I wrote down in my bio, I was homeless. I'm not proud I was homeless.
No.
I'm excited about that. But it gives a lot more context to the person on the other end listening, to say, okay, here's a rounded, different individual, and I can understand a little more about that person and maybe where they're coming from, maybe not, but at least I know more about them and feel, okay, we're connecting.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we want to know that someone is human. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And we've all seen the speakers where, they're not relating. And a good portion of that is, I mean, they're the ones that, they're the ones paid $50,000. They get up, they give their same speech that you could hear 5 different places, and it's the exact same speech, but you really get nothing from it. Right. It's when they stop and talk about, even if it's just, maybe they give the same speech all those times, but they stop and say something about, oh my God, I lost my luggage. Can you believe that? And here's what we had to do because of it. Or, all of those things, because again, it puts us back to they're human also. And as that speaker, we also have to be prepared for things that happen. I got heckled one time. That was really entertaining.
That's the worst.
And it was a course that people paid for on LinkedIn, how to use LinkedIn. Man. And dude heckled me. And now he had a point, because I was doing the royal we in my presentation. And he said, you don't know what you're talking about. and so I stopped and I acknowledged him, and I said, you know what, you're right. So then I was able to immediately change then how, so the royal we went away, but he heckled a couple more times, and I finally stopped the presentation, and I said, and he had also been somebody who came in late, who made a presentation of coming in late. Always. I mean, hello, drama queen. And I finally said, sir, you clearly don't want to be here. I'm more than happy to give you a refund, but please leave. And everybody clapped.
Sure, they don't want him there either.
Well, and he was the drama queen all the time. I mean, people came up to me afterwards and said, and now the spooky thing was he was waiting by my car when I went to leave.
Now that's way too far.
Yeah. Now, but he apologized. He was there to apologize, and it did, but it did kind of freak me out. And he realized it. He's like, no, it's okay. And it wasn't dark or anything like that. I mean, it was, but yeah, I mean, it was that, but we do have things as speakers that happen. A tray of glasses gets dropped. Your microphone cuts out.
Microphone stops. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I knocked over a bottle of water one time into me.
No.
And I looked down and went, good thing I've got a jacket, and I buttoned my jacket up.
and to back to the speaker's toolkit that we talked about. So do yourself a favor, go through something like Toastmasters, get your basics down. understand all of your fundamentals. Once you begin to understand your fundamentals, you start adding in various components of what I call the speaker's tool belt, which is what I use like myself. I didn't trademark that or anything. I don't, it's not my thing to say, but I have a thing that I can do for almost any moment that will happen in a live audience situation. Like you said, microphone going out, spilling water, heckler. I have 4 or 5 different ways to handle somebody if they heckle me. If I'm feeling sick on stage, if I'm feeling
that happens sometimes.
It has happened before. I felt physically ill on stage. I needed to get off the stage, but how do you do that in an effective manner? And I've got 3 or 4 things I can throw out depending on the presentation, the audience, the moment. And I can tell you in a moment of total vulnerability, almost 99% of those things were learned on the fly when something happened and it didn't go well.
Right.
Or it did. I don't know, something happened and I was like, okay. And I went and did something. And then afterwards I was like, okay, I've not run into that before. It's never happened to me, but what else could I do in that situation? And then I start practicing different things I can do. And that's, in my mind, how you start to become what I would consider a professional versus just a speaker.
Right.
But you gotta start at the beginning. And you got to practice a lot. And for many people, they have no interest in going the professional route. Great.
And that's fine.
You don't have to ever go there, ever. You can still sell $1 million more in your product or service by just simply getting out there and sharing knowledge that you have.
Right.
If you want to take it the next level, then you're going to have to put in some work and you're going to have to learn some things. And you're going to
you have to learn what to do if there's a heckler or
you have to know how to handle that person. And if somebody's talking, how to kind of walk towards them on the stage without looking at them, and they'll get that
without
weird
saying, yo,
feeling,
pay
like
attention.
the speaker's really close to me, like I'm not comfortable anymore. Like there's so many things you can do. And if you're interested in learning that craft, gosh, I don't know, the National Speakers Association has a bunch of that sort of stuff. Connect with other speakers. Like we all talk about that stuff together. You've had several people that talk about speaking in your podcast. And so just listen and learn from those that have been there.
Right. Yeah. And look at things that, examples of, when you saw things that happened, how did they handle it? Was it good? Was it bad?
Totally.
Yeah. I watched a speaker one time and somebody in the front, their cell phone rang. Okay. He kind of gave him the snark eye. Then it rang again. And he stopped his presentation, trots down to him and puts his hand out. And not only did he take their phone, he chucked it to the back of the room.
Well, that's aggressive.
And the really funny thing was every other person in there got their phone out, went off,
turned it off. So I have my favorite line. I hope that people use this. You might have to hit the rewind button a couple of times. Just make sure you memorize this line. My favorite line when a cell phone goes off during an important part of the presentation. If a cell phone goes off during a very, very, very unimportant part, I may or may not acknowledge it. It's not sure. I might glance over and they get it usually. But if I like something, it'll happen. You'll drop just a bomb and you no, this was like boom. And like it hit the audience. You can feel the audience taking it in, and then cell phone goes off. And I will always pause and I'll go, that was just God calling to confirm my point.
Right.
And the audience erupts in laughter because they're as tense as you are about it.
They're thinking, oh crap.
Yeah, they're like, oh man. I'm always like, hey, that's just God calling to confirm that last point that I just made. And everybody laughs. It lets the air out of the room. Everybody can relax. It still sends the signal. I heard that.
Turn your phone off.
We all heard it. Let's turn our phone off. Right. And then, if it happens again, but anyway, that's my favorite line when that happens. But that's when I talk about my tool belt, right? Like I got little things I can throw out there, like zing, 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 like anything happens. You got to be ready for it.
Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, Jabez, we are at the top of the hour.
This is so fun.
yeah. And I've already, we're going to have you on again because you have written a book. It's going to come out later in the summer of 2022. And so we'll have you on again because it's just from the title. I'm like, oh my God, we have to talk about this.
The title's
so
I
we're
Don't
just going
Match
to
Socks.
tease. Yes.
For those that don't know.
Yes. I love it. But tell us a little bit more about Lotus Launch, some of the services that you provide, and then how people connect with you.
Sure. So we're an on-demand training platform and a community for female entrepreneurs. Not everybody can afford coaching and consulting. Everybody needs knowledge. And so we're just a place and an environment for you to come and learn. Our topics range from HR topics to marketing to sales to technology tools that you can use in your business. And they're all on-demand courses with videos and action sheets and stuff that you can help monitor and grow your business as you look to scale from 200,000 to hopefully over 1 million sooner than later. And so that's what we do. You can connect with us at community.lotuslaunch.com or find us online at lotuslaunch.com as well. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter or shoot me an email. I'm the only Jabez LeBret out there. So
I love it. You've got that marketing thing down good, right?
Yeah. So we do love to connect with folks. And even if Lotus Launch isn't the right thing for you, I love to be connected to people. So you got more questions about speaking, got more questions about how this could relate to your business, do connect, because I would be happy to share.
I love it. And I can't wait to have you on again when we talk about I don't match socks, because I don't match socks either. So this is going to be fun.
Yes. I love it.
And so we'll talk to you again later on this year. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
The enemy of done is perfect. That's been my credo lately. We've been getting a lot of stuff done. It ain't perfect, but we've been working really hard. So don't forget that more often than not, what you're producing is pretty awesome.
I love it. I've been having so much fun talking with Jabez LeBret. I'm Deb Creer, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.